Was Sodom's sin merely inhospitality and not homosexuality? What's the naked truth? In Genesis 19, God destroyed Sodom after the men of the city tried to have sex with two sojourners under Lot's care. In Ezekiel 16, verse 49, we read, "Behold, this was a guilt of your sister Sodom. She and her daughters had pride, excess of food, and prosperous ease, but did not aid the poor and needy." Did God rain down fire and brimstone simply because they didn't bring out the best dinnerware or roll out the red carpet? Was Sodom's sin merely inhospitality and not homosexuality? No. And here are 3 reasons why. Number 1, this is a classic false dilemma fallacy. The false dilemma, sometimes called a false dichotomy or either-or fallacy, is when someone tries to make you believe there are only 2 choices, like it's either this or that, when there might be more than one option. It's a way to trick you into thinking you have to pick between 2 things, even though there's a chance both can be true. Or there could be altogether another solution. When gay activists claim Sodom's sin was not homosexuality but inhospitality, they erroneously assume both are mutually exclusive and can't be true at the same time. Where's the evidence? Both inhospitality and homosexuality are irreconcilably at odds. Who says? Genesis 19 does not convey multiple offenses. So the right question is not what is Sodom's sin, rather, what are Sodom's sins? Number 2. Sodom's sins were more than just inhospitality. In Genesis 13, verse 13, we're told, "The men of Sodom were wicked, great sinners against the Lord." The Hebrew Bible reserved wicked, great sinners to only one group of people, the men of Sodom and no one else. In Genesis 18, verse 20, God proclaims the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and their sin is very grave. Sodom's sins were not trivial or small, but great and very grave. The Bible repeatedly states that Sodom wasn't solely guilty of inhospitality. In Ezekiel 16, verse 49, many sins were mentioned along with inhospitality, such as pride, gluttony, and laziness. Jude, verse 7, states that Sodom indulged in sexual immorality. In Jeremiah 23, verse 14, God linked the sin of adultery with Sodom and Jerusalem. Clearly, Sodom's sins were many, but is there clear evidence that homosexuality was among Sodom's many sins? Yes, which brings us to our last point. Number 3, God lists homosexuality as one of Sodom's many sins. In Ezekiel 16, verse 49 to 50, God spoke in the first person through the prophet Ezekiel, listing pride, gluttony, laziness, and inhospitality. "Behold, this was the guilt of your sister Sodom. She and her daughters had pride, excess of food, and prosperous ease, but did not aid the poor and needy. They were haughty and did an abomination before me, so I removed them when I saw it." Gay activists will misuse this passage to purport that the sin of Sodom was inhospitality, conceding the other sins like pride, gluttony, and laziness, but ignoring what follows. In verse 50, God lists 2 more sins. They were haughty and did an abomination before me. Haughtiness is being arrogant and disdainful. The next phrase may not be as familiar to us as to Ezekiel, a priest well acquainted with the law of Moses. The phrase in Ezekiel 16, verse 50, "did an abomination," is made up of 2 Hebrew words taken from Leviticus 20, verse 13, one of the main laws condemning homosexuality. If a man lies with a male as with a woman, both of them have committed an abomination. Did and committed are from the same Hebrew verb, asah, and abomination comes from the Hebrew word toavah. This is called a cross-reference. Did you know that the Bible is full of cross-references, nearly 64,000? A cross-reference can be a quote or pulling keywords from another verse. Old Testament and New Testament authors love to cross-reference other Old Testament and New Testament authors. This upholds Scripture's unity and integrity, the Old and the New, something gay activists reject. Furthermore, Every time the Bible mentions the act of sex, a euphemism is used. Did you know that the Bible does not have an explicit word for sex? Does this mean ancient Israelites didn't know what sex was? Of course not. Other euphemisms were used like to know, to lay, or to see one's nakedness. I'm sure you've heard it purported that the word homosexual was not in the Bible. But the absence of a word does not mean the absence of a concept. I created another video where I refute this myth here. With no specific word for sex, it's no surprise then that other words were used to communicate the act of homosexual sex in the Old Testament. In this case, did or committed an abomination was a euphemism for the sin of homosexuality. Thus, it was God himself speaking through the prophet Ezekiel, connecting the sin of Sodom with the sin of homosexuality mentioned in Leviticus 20, verse 13. Scripture interprets Scripture. So the next time you hear homosexuality was not Sodom's sin, inhospitality was. Remember these 3 points. Number 1, this is a classic false dilemma fallacy. Number 2, Sodom's sins were more than just inhospitality. Number 3, God lists homosexuality as one of Sodom's many sins. For the Naked Truth, I'm Christopher Yuan.